welcome to our 7th School Garden Mentorship Workshop of the year. Thank you for finding time to show up on this busy first couple weeks of school. I know this is a big transition time as school starts, but it's also a wonderful time to be in the garden, both because there's often fruits of your labor out there to harvest, but also because the garden can just be a really supportive place as we're getting back into our school routine and building our class culture for the year as well. So today, we will be talking about seed saving and harvesting in the garden, and we're really excited to have Siri here with FarmFolk CityFolk as our guest speaker. FarmFolk developed my very favorite food literacy resource of the year last year. It's an incredible resource on seed saving, and I'm grateful to have Siri here to be able to walk us through the resource today. Before we start, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm calling in from the traditional unceded ancestral territories of the Cowichan Nation who have lived here since time immemorial. I'm a second-generation settler living on this land that is the lifeline of the Cowichan Nation, and it's my commitment to be part of reconciliation in this community. If folks would also like to share the territory that they're calling in today, that would be great if you could do so in the chat bar. If you are joining us for the first time with the School Garden Mentorship Series, my name is Tessa Stiven, and I am the Central Island Community Animator with Farm to School BC. I'm also a teacher and a farmer, and I love seed saving. I've had a passion for seed saving for a long time, and so it's so fun to get to talk about this topic today in the workshop. And I'm joined by Kaylin, our Farm to School BC Food Literacy Advisor, and I'll pass the mic over to Kaylin for a minute.
Hi, everyone. I am Kaylin. I'm joining you here today from the traditional and unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, Vancouver. And I am really excited to be here in September. I'm also a teacher in School District 39. So all of you teachers out there, folks working in schools, I know I'm in the same second week cycle that you are in. So feeling big love to all of you in that as well.
Thanks, Kaylin. Before we dive into the workshop today, I just want to share a quick background about Farm to School BC. Farm to School BC is a program that brings healthy, local, and sustainable food into schools across British Columbia. We provide students with hands-on learning opportunities that develop food literacy, and while we do this, we strengthen the local food system and enhance school and community connectedness. Farm to School BC is a program of the Public Health Association of BC, and we're supported by the province of British Columbia. Our Farm to School BC is led by our provincial team, which is pictured here. And we also have 6 community animators supporting 8 regional hubs, and they are on the ground in the community building the relationships between the school districts and the community partners and the students. Those hubs are spread across BC. You can see the 8 there and the school districts that each hub supports. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Kaylin to launch us in.
Thanks, Tessa. Today we have a really great welcome back agenda for you. It is September, so we've had a couple months away from the School Garden Mentorship. And I'm really happy to be back and to kind of connect with the community again. So we're going to be talking about thinking about the garden as a September outdoor classroom. We are really excited to be having a welcome back giveaway today. This is the first one that we've tried since, I think at least since Tessa and I have been co-hosts. And Tessa will explain a bit more about that later. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're going to be talking a little bit about seed saving at school. And then we're really excited to have a presentation from Siri Van Gruen, who is joining us from FarmFolk CityFolk, but is also our new Surrey Animator. So we're really happy to have her joining us in sort of both of those roles today. And then we'll be wrapping up with harvest resources for that. So one thing that I just wanted to reflect on right at the beginning was really thinking about how, while maybe some of us have been working in the garden since the spring and that the garden year is wrapping around and through September, that a lot of us are kind of coming back together in a different type of new year, which is like the school new year. And this is when a lot of us are meeting new students, our new classes, and we're doing our classroom community building. And we're thinking about establishing routines. And thinking about seasonal shifts. So we're together in fall, or coming out of September, or coming to the end of summer and into fall. And this is a great time to really be establishing a garden routine or an outdoor routine with your new class, because they're kind of primed and ready for that. So just kind of bringing us together to where we are in that. One thing that I wanted to highlight is that some of our previous webinars are a really great resource for doing those things. So we're not going to get deep into classroom routines in this particular presentation, but if you go back into our program library for the April SGM and the previous video for that, it's going to help you walk through some of those routines. So if you missed that presentation, or even if you were there for it, these videos don't have to be received in a linear way. So I really encourage you to go back and take a look at that, that previous recording. Yeah, and some of these too as well, just thinking about things like exit and enter routines, opening and closing circles. Those are really great ways for us to kind of build community in September. Thanks, Tessa.
Thanks, Kaylin. So we thought I'd add a little excitement if we peppered some giveaway breaks into this workshop today. And there's also just some great resources that we wanted the opportunity to share with you. And so it's nice to be able to mail those to you as a giveaway. So we're going to have 4 skill testing seed questions throughout the workshop today. And how it's going to work is in a moment, I'm going to show a picture of a seed crop, both in the flower stage and the seed stage. And whoever can first write in the chat bar the correct plant that seed is from will win either a beautiful deck of these plant life cycle cards that are made by FarmFolk CityFolk, and the pictures that the seed game is using is from that deck of cards. You can see a little example on the left of the slide here. Or you will receive a mail of seed saving crop cards. These are color printed on cardstock and can be used in your classroom. So what we'll do is in a minute, I'm gonna pull up the slide and then type in the chat bar as quick as you can, whatever plant you think that's from. And we get progressively harder throughout the workshop. So hopefully this one's a good warm up. Okay, are you ready? Here we go. What plant is this seed from? Awesome. It is kale. We have lots of kales coming in. I see radish. I see the similarity, yes. So our Madison will send you a quick message over chat, whoever said kale first, to get your mailing address for the giveaway. Okay, now that we know how this works, we're going to do the next one. So correct on kale, this little picture. Okay, you ready for the next one? Coming up in 3, 2, 1. What seed is this? Awesome. I love the quick typing typos. But yes, it is lettuce. Both the kale and the lettuce we picked because likely though you may have those seeds in your school garden right now going to seed, and there's a great opportunity to save them. So we'll come back to giveaways later. There'll be 2 more coming up. So if you missed out on the first round, there's more coming. Before we hear from Siri about teaching seeds in your classroom, we wanted to share some big picture ideas about bringing the practice of seed saving into your garden and into your school classroom. And I wanted to share first a story. I have always loved growing dried beans. I've grown them in my home garden for years, in part because they're really easy to grow and they don't require a lot of tending to, but also because they're a wonderful source of winter protein. I just love having jars of beans on my shelf with their beautiful colors. There's so many great heirloom varieties. But when I became a teacher, I started growing them just because kids love to shell beans. And I realized this was a wonderful class activity. Sometimes it would be a station in the garden during recess. I'd have EAs come and ask me, can we borrow a bag of beans to shell because a student needs some self-regulation time. And I just realized there was such joy around it. Watching kids sit around a big bag of beans to shell is kind of akin to watching them sit around a campfire and the conversations that come up. And invariably, every time kids are starting to negotiate with me of how many seeds are they allowed to slip into their pocket, because they're just mesmerized by the colors and the beauty that are in these bean seeds. But I think more than that, they're also mesmerized by that feeling of holding a seed in their hand, and that feeling in their hand is everything they need to grow a plant. And there's a real power into looking at seeds and holding them in your hand. And I think it echoes food sovereignty and that sense of control and ownership over your food and over your food system. And so I share this story because I think when we think about seed saving, we start to think about, oh, it'd be great, we can save our seeds and grow our garden again next year. And to me as an educator, the value of sharing seeds is so much beyond that. And it's about empowering kids with that feeling of holding a seed in their hand and knowing that plants produce these magnitudes of seeds and just one can grow a whole new plant. And it's a wonderful way to connect to nature's cycles and just feel that beauty of seeds in their hand. And they're just so beautiful. I feel like every year I try to grow less dried beans, but then I find a new variety and I think I got to plant that one too. So they're definitely a favorite of mine. So if you are inspired to start seed saving in your classroom, sometimes we can be deterred from it because it can feel very complex. You hear about isolation distances and biannual life cycles and cross-pollination, but it can also be really easy. So I wanted to share with you first just 5 plants you may have in your school garden that are easy to save seeds from. Beans and peas, dry on the vines, coming back in September, especially if the garden that hasn't had a lot of watering over the summer, they're likely already dry and they're ready to go. Lettuce is another one that you don't need to worry about the complexities that you do in some others. Tomatoes are a really fun one to grow in your class as to save the seeds because you get to ferment them and watch them kind of form bubble and then sift out the seeds. And lastly, flowers is another one that you likely have in a school garden that is an easier place to start with seed saving. We're going to get into resources about the nitty-gritty of how to save those, but I just wanted to give you a starting place to know that if this is something new to you, there's a really simple place to start. That said, start simple, but I encourage you to dream big. And I just wanted to share this inspirational story. Some schools are using their seed saving to actually connect into seed sales and seed fundraisers. And these pictures are from a school in Nanaimo, Dover Bay Secondary School. And here it's been a group of students completely self-run that run their food forest at the school. And from that, they've taken on an initiative to grow plants, particularly for seeds, save those seeds and have an annual seed fundraiser. They've done so much as even create an online seed catalog on their Eco Club website. And Madison will post that in the chat. But if you want some inspiration about just how far you could go with seed saving in your school garden, take a look at that. Another way, if you're wanting to connect your seed saving to the broader community, I encourage you to look into seed libraries. A lot of regional libraries, as well as local community organizations, have started up seed libraries. And they're a place where you can bring seeds or you can take seeds from the library, and they often come with a bunch of seed saving resources as well. And it's a really nice way of building those community food systems and building that food sovereignty back into your community through sharing seeds through the seed library. And it's always nice, you can see a picture of the kids' artwork, but just really, I think for those going into seed library, it's wonderful to see that kids have had a connection to that community resource too. I think it is meaningful for the students to connect to the community in that way, but also meaningful for the community to get a sense that kids are connecting to this resource as well. So if you're excited to save seeds, I'm going to pass it over to Kayla now to equip you with some of the resources that you might use in your classroom to do that.
So Siri will be talking more about these, this is part of the larger resource that FarmFolk CityFolk created, but there's so many resources out there. One of the things that we were wanting to do is really as a teacher, I find it really helpful just to have someone who's used a resource before or is able to highlight it. These seed saving crop cards are part of the FarmFolk CityFolk resource, and I think they're a really wonderful resource, and I think they're a really great entry point to inquiry projects. So there's a lot of technical information and there's a lot of entry points into different types of inquiries that you could do. I think also that part of that FarmFolk CityFolk resource, Tessa, if you want to go to the next slide, so these are part of the bite-sized seed saving lesson plans. There's different kinds of charts and graphs that are part of it. So when we're thinking about curriculum and we're thinking about how are we working with all of the different aspects that we have to do, this is I think it's a series of 8 resources or lesson plans that you are able to engage with many areas of the curriculum simultaneously. So I would really recommend, you'll hear Siri talk about it more shortly, but at the end of the presentation, hopping on there and taking a really deep look into it. I really like that you could pull out one tiny aspect of it, but also that they're so comprehensive. You could spend the first couple of months at school going through that resource, or you could extend it through the entire year. If you can go to the next slide, Tessa. Yeah, these are pictures from that card game that Tessa's talking about. So just really getting kids engaged in an interactive way, I think is really exciting. And a lot of the times when we're thinking about connecting to the curriculum around seeds or around gardening in general, science is like something that comes up really quickly, but I really like the idea of thinking about numeracy and literacy. These are things that take up a lot of time and space in our weeks as educators. And the numeracy ideas that we have listed here are ones that came from Chris Brown, or Farmer Brown, on the island, who's kind of makes lots of good resources and references thinking about sorting and cleaning, data collection and interpretation, and patterning, which are like a part of those real core numeracy skills, and really thinking about hands-on contextual math, which is a really exciting way to engage with math with kids. Germination rate is something that I've done with my own classes before, and I find it like really fun and really engaging. And we were working on a bread project last year, and so what we did was we took 100 seeds that we had together, and we used them. We kind of sandwiched the seeds between 2 damp paper towels. We kept them damp and took a look at, as those seeds sprouted, to see what is the germ rate on these seeds that we have. So that's like a really hands-on way of thinking about what percentage of these seeds do we think are going to be sprouting when we put these into the ground. And kind of going through those cycles with kids, it's much different than working like pen to paper kind of math, as well as thinking about literacy with seed stories and seed heritage, which is something that I think Siri will get into a little bit as well. So I would like to introduce our guest speaker for today. Siri Van Gruen is a plant enthusiast, and she is happiest outside in the garden getting her hands dirty. And her passion is for sustainable food systems, and that led her to complete a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture and Environmental Sciences, specializing in plant production at McGill. Since graduating, she has been working towards enhancing BC's seed security with FarmFolk CityFolk. And we're really happy to have her here today to talk about her work with FarmFolk CityFolk and the seed resources that we were mentioning earlier.
Great, thanks so much, Kaylin. And Tessa, I'll share my screen. Very happy to be here today and talking to you all. As they were saying, I've recently just started a role at Farm to School as the Surrey Animator. So if there's any Surrey teachers here, I'd be very interested to connecting to you and learning about what you're doing at your school. So I'll maybe share my email later. So yeah, today we're going to be talking about school seed stewardship. And I know we had that lovely land acknowledgement at the beginning, but I thought I would just take a moment for a quick seed acknowledgement. We care for seeds because they've always cared for us. Oftentimes I get very mesmerized by how many hands seeds would have had to pass through to get to me today. And then especially when you start seed saving I've been seed saving for about 4 years now. And you know, those seeds I sent out in 2020 that now I've sent out to someone, and they've saved those seeds and sent them to somewhere else. And it's really interesting. I just love how it has to pass through so many hands, and so many people have to care for that seed for it to get to you. And I think there's something really special about that. So I thought I would just talk briefly about the history of how we developed these resources. We started off by creating kind of 4 longer workshops that could take place kind of with the seasons, early spring, late spring, fall, and kind of closer to winter. And we tested the materials on 4 different schools with ages ranging from K to 6. And this was in collaboration with Farm to School BC. They were really great, connected to us with our local animators to test out these in real schools. And then after this pilot project, we realized that the presentations were too long. They didn't allow students to focus on one topic, as well as the turnover of students from spring to June to the following year makes it difficult to follow an entire year of seed saving with a classroom. However, from teachers, we heard lots of great feedback about our games and activities. So we really focused on making really meaningful activities and kind of stripping it down so that the lessons would be more bite-sized, which is where we came up with the name bite-sized lessons. So each bite-sized lesson contains a lesson plan, PowerPoint slides, and these are very short PowerPoints. I don't believe any is more than 20 slides. We usually aim to have around 8 to 20 slides with the idea that you could complete this in a typical classroom period and still do some of the activities. And then they also have your printable activities as well as kind of listed appropriate ages for the lesson. Sometimes there'll be different activities that are perhaps a bit more advanced or a bit more for beginners, and we often have a bit of a wider range of ages. So you might have to just read the activities and kind of see which one would best fit with your age group. And then the lessons plans are all placed in a suggested order. However, they can totally be used independently. And if there's a certain topic you're interested in, I would say pull that out. There's a great one on pollinators and just do that one. So here's a list of them. I'll just give you a minute to read if you're curious. Our first one is definitely seed stewardship. A big component of making this lesson plan was to impart a sense of stewardship on the students, how they are taking a part of saving these seeds, and they're part of that seed's history, and how they share their seeds to their community or through fundraisers, and the importance of that and looking after your seeds and making sure you took care of them. And with that, we try to bring, wherever possible, Indigenous perspectives on how they might treat seed saving or sharing stories wherever possible. So I thought for this presentation, I would just kind of walk you through an example of a bite-sized lesson. I picked one that has a lot of activities because I think that might be the most interesting thing for teachers to hear about today. So I chose to walk through our topic, which is how plants make seed. And this is the picture on the right is kind of what our lesson plan would look like. So it comes with kind of the subtopics, the ages it's recommended, some keywords. If you're teaching your students vocabulary, these might be good words to pick for like a spelling test or something like that. And then the general lesson content. So this would be the intro slide. And then each one has our seed acknowledgement. And then this presentation suggests you start the session with a bean dissection. So in groups of 2, you're supposed to dissect the soaked up in seed, and this is just to get kids right away having that hands-on touching seeds and kind of experimenting with them and questioning what they're seeing with these seeds. And then the next slide would go over the basics of plant biology and reproduction. How different plants can look. Their seeds also look very different, and kind of thinking about how pollination is related to seed saving. And then we added this fun stop motion video on pollination that kind of goes through how pollen travels. It's a really fun video to include. Oh, I'm not gonna watch it right now. And then after watching that video, you could also, there's lots of resources, other videos if you don't like that one, but you could ask your students, do you think pollen travels farther when blown by wind or carried by insects? How does pollen move around? And what did we see in the video? Just generating questions from your students. And then this following slide kind of explains how the pollen moves. So it's just to show that self-pollinated crops, they don't need as much of an isolation distance, and they don't move as far. The pollen doesn't move as far versus insects. They buzz around a little bit, so they get their pollen moved, but nothing is like the wind. The wind can move pollen for football fields. So that's kind of fun. And then, yeah, it just kind of goes up. This annuals, biennials, perennials explains when you might expect to see seeds on your plant. And then, yeah, this is a summary of learning and activity. So as you can see, like that was a very short amount of slides, and the focus on this one was the activities. So I thought I'd just talk about some of these. We have a lot more, but these are all pretty fun. So yeah, activity options. We have some activity options for seed recognition, which include a seed field game and the matching cards that you guys saw earlier, and then a written, creating a Venn diagram with the similarities and differences between plants and how they make seeds. So you could have lettuce on one side, cucumbers on the other. Where are the similarities and where are the differences? And then an active game, if you want to bring this into your PE class or just have a break outside to get your students running. And then a creative option. So yeah, and then so the seed matching game, how that works is you have the 4 stages of growth and you're trying to match up to create a matching set. So there'll be one of the flower, one of the seed, what the seed's found in, and the crop that you eat. And I think this game can be adapted to a lot of different ways. Like I've been interested in seeing when you bring it to kids how they interact with the game. You can explain to them how it works, group it together, and it's nice when they work in pairs. But then I've seen them create a Go Fish game, or if you guys have ever seen those the memory games where you have them all laid out. If your students are a bit less familiar with crops and matching them would be a bit of a struggle, kind of laying them out on a table and flipping two that you think are connected and kind of going through kind of like those memory games. I've seen kids enjoy playing it like that too. And then we've included a challenge. So if you've set your students out in a few groups to work on these and somebody's finished too early, you can tell them, well, maybe your next step is to try to sort the cards in the types of pollination, or if they're annuals or biennials or perennials. So I think the matching cards can be used more than just matching, but they're still great for matching their intended purpose. And then this seed field game is just to get kind of a tactile experience of seeds. And it's just the idea of holding seeds behind each student. You'll get in pairs, and one student holds out the seeds to the other, and they have to behind their back, and they have to kind of feel what they think that seed is. You can have the cards out in front of them so they can kind of see what the pictures are, can kind of feel if the seed feels rough. They can kind of look at the pictures and think, oh, maybe that's beet or Swiss chard, it's rough, or this is really round and small. Let me look at the pictures, what are round and small seeds? And it's just to get kids of that tactile experience of holding seeds and trying to connect them to a plant. And then this is our active game. It's called Go Pollinator, Stop Pollinator, and it's just a modified version of red light, green light. And it's super fun. I've played it lots with kids, and it's especially great if you're doing a bit of a longer session on seed saving and you need a running break in between. But how it works is you'll break up your students into 3 groups, and the self-pollinating plants can only hop on their 2 feet, so they're going to be pretty slow because self-pollinated plants, the pollen doesn't move very far. And then the insects, they can take big steps of both feet and buzz if they want. And then the wind can run. So then when you play this game and you tell the students to stop, you can point out at different times like, oh, put up your hand if you're a self-pollinator. And you'll mostly notice that those kids are at the back. And then your insect pollinators, put your hand up. And then if you see a variation, I've played it before where kids cheat, so sometimes you'll see an insect go, they're just running, they're not taking big steps, but then you can use that as an educational opportunity. Sometimes the insect gets caught in the wind and it will go farther. And these are the general rules of seed saving, but nature is fluid and we adapt to it. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of some of the activities. And then I thought I would just take you over to our website just to show you what that looks like. So this is our school seed stewardship project page. It's on our what we do section. And we also have some things in our resource section in our resource library. So yeah, we've kind of table of contents of all the bite-sized lesson plans. And we often have like seed stories. Someone's from Jacob Beaton up north about an indigenous potato, and then we try to have PDF slides and Microsoft PowerPoint in case you want to adapt the presentations. You can delete things if you think it's not super, if it's too basic or advanced for your age student. We understand that grades 1 to 8 is a big difference, and we've tried to make it as able to be used by all these students, but you can adapt them in the Microsoft PowerPoint if you want. And yeah, I'm just going to quickly, so we've got how plants make seeds, and that's the one I walked you through, and then how seeds travel. And then sometimes we've linked other websites that we think have great activities. Of course, Farm to School also has so many great activities on their website. Understanding plant species. This one's for a bit of a older grade, but it comes with a plant quiz inside of the PowerPoint. And then we've got seed saving and cross-pollination. Learn about different ways plants are pollinated. And there's a lot of crossover in these different lesson plans, but I think the more students hear about pollination or about some of these concepts, even if they're in different presentations, the more exposure they get to it and understanding it a bit more. And then this is what I mean, like this one's grade 1 to 12. So a coloring worksheet might be more appropriate for a younger audience versus kind of creating charts might be good for older audiences, that kind of thing. And then we've got population sizes, seeds and biodiversity. Here we have our spinach survival game. This is quite a fun game. I played it at the Farm to School BC conference actually last June with the teachers that came out to that. And it's a great game to kind of show why it's important to have biodiversity, because you can't necessarily see if a plant is disease resistant by looking at it, while you can see other things, and it kind of just goes through the life cycle of a plant and the different obstacles a plant might face throughout the year, like drought and disease and insects and all those things, and cold temperatures. And all of our games are printable. We've got printable versions of them. We don't sell the spinach survival game, but we do sell the matching card game. But you can also print them out yourself. And then this one's genetics, phenotypes, and genotypes, a bit more for an older grade group. We've got a fun printable Frankenstein plant game, but you can still color, so it's kind of fun. This one's more meant for a teacher's guide so less for your students, but if you're a bit curious on creating a seed garden, got lots of extra resources on that one. And then we've got ones saving specific seeds, tomatoes and cucumbers, and kale and arugula. And then our last one is saving seeds, cleaning, drying, and storage. Oh, not our last one, our second to last one. And I find like cleaning and seeds of students is really fun. Just recently in the summer, I guess it was in June while students were still in school, I had a group out, and I had a whole bunch of mixed seed that I had accidentally got mixed up in seed cleaning, and it was different sizes. I had some squash, some brassicas, and radishes. I just gave the kids colanders and a few different colanders and mesh that I had around, and they had fun separating them. And then I kind of showed them how you can blow on things and little bits, and they just had fun, and they kept on mixing it back up so they could separate it again. So oftentimes when you accidentally mix up your seeds, that's can be a fun thing for students to sort out too. And then our last one is starting a seed library, and it can be about starting a seed library at your school. And if you're interested in connecting with your local seed libraries, I'm sure they would love to have your seeds and connect with you. On our website, we have a list here in our resource section of seed libraries, and it has all of the seed libraries in BC listed that we know about. So that's a great resource if you want to connect to your local seed library. Then I'll just go back to the presentation. I don't have that much, but yeah, so this is one other program we do at FarmFolk CityFolk that I just wanted to highlight while I'm here, because while this isn't particularly focused on seed saving, you could adapt this project to include seed saving, and I think it's just a general, it's a variety trial, so it gives students the opportunity to test out how different varieties might be different. You know, cherry tomatoes, there's red ones and yellow ones and orange ones, they all grow a bit different. They'll taste a bit different. And this trial just gives your students an opportunity to kind of test out different varieties. And we've also heard from people participating in this program that it helps healthy eating, enhances your gardening skills. And we offer opportunities to talk to plant breeders and things. These don't often align with the school year, but they're all recorded. And then this year with the trial, we really tried to focus on early season crops to include teachers. And we want continuing going forward, we'll make sure each year there's at least a early season crop or a really fall season crop. Well, you're just going to make sure that there's a crop that would be suitable to schools in future years. So this year we looked at radishes, peas, and salad turnips. And the salad turnips were definitely interesting because a lot of students hadn't seen these crops before, and it's kind of an introduction to new crops as well. And then, yeah, as I said, we'll try to keep one trial easily accessible by teachers. And then next year, we'll be launching our first citizen participatory breeding project. So this will look a bit different. Rather than sending out different varieties of the same crop, we'll send one variety with a picture of what it's supposed to look like. And then you take a picture of what it actually looks like, and then you're kind of noting the differences. And if they're the desirable differences, you would save those seeds and send them back. But it'll be a pilot project this year to see how that goes. We've done farming participatory breeding projects, but never on a citizen level. And then just one last thing, just a quick overview of our other programs at FarmFolk CityFolk, specifically in the BC Seed Security Program. That might be interesting is we've got our mobile seed cleaner, and this often makes its way across the province in fall. And there's sometimes opportunities for field trips to the mobile seed cleaner, or to just have access to some cleaning equipment. So if you see one coming in your region, you can feel free to reach out to the FarmFolk CityFolk coordinator and see if there's opportunity to access some of that equipment or just show it off to your students. I talked about the citizen seed trial. Yeah, I think that's the ones that are mostly relevant to teachers. And then that's my last slide. So yeah, that's everything for me. Of course, happy to answer questions at the end. Great.
Thank you so much, Siri. FarmFolk CityFolk and the work that you guys do. You could spend a long time on your website. There's so much rich material on there, and I think I'm really happy you talked about the citizen seed trial, because I do think that's like a really exciting way to engage students in like something that feels like there's some stakes in it, beyond just themselves and beyond the school community. I think that reach out is always like really exciting for students. And we do have some time now if anyone in the audience has questions for Siri. Also, I know it takes a little bit of time to form questions too, so we can save that time kind of till later on in the presentation, and Siri will be here with us as well. But thank you so much, Siri. I'm really excited to have folks who are in the Surrey area. You're really lucky to have Siri coming to work with you in that region as well. So Tessa, if you want to bring it to our next giveaway break. So we will bring up whenever you're ready.
It's coming. Sorry, 1 second.
No, I'm sorry.
Get us where we want to be. We're almost there. Don't want to go too far and give away.
That's what I would do. That's what I would do in class for sure.
Totally.
All right, here we go.
So take it away.
We'll do a little countdown so everyone's got their typing fingers ready, and we will begin in 3, 2, 1. Go for it, Tessa. Whoa, fast. All right, we've got a few people there. And Tessa, if you want to switch to the slide, it is carrots. So we've got quite a few people who got that one, but good work, everyone. I love carrot flowers so much. They're like one of my, used to do flower arranging. I liked including them in floral arrangements too. Such a beautiful spray.
That's what they smell. They're like my favorite smelling seed. I feel like they should be used for perfumes and things. I think kids could
Yeah,
that.
it's true. It is a very special sweet smell. And really making relationship too between the smell of those flowers and then the food. Like I think those things are really fun. It's a scent is always a underused resource, like scents in school. I feel like we only ever talk about like smells that we don't like at school, but never the ones that we find beautiful. Oh, there's a good question in the chat. What is the best way to clean carrot seeds?
Yeah, carrot seeds. And I also saw somebody said looks like Queen Anne's lace. That's the wild carrot. So all carrots are derived from Queen Anne's lace. So if you're ever saving seed with for carrots in your garden and you have Queen Anne's lace nearby, they will cross pollinate, and then your next year when you plant those seeds, they'll be pretty white, blocky carrots that aren't super tasty. The best way to clean carrot, to be honest, like carrot is easily the hardest, like at least one of the more challenging seeds to clean. For kind of smaller scales, my favorite thing to use is actually a car mat, like that you could put your feet on. That the ones with like the rivets that are kind of usually meant for, not your fabric, but the rivet plasticky ones. And then you have like the whole carrot on the stalk thing and just kind of rubbing it against that, I tend to find breaks off. You get the least amount of sticks falling out while still kind of getting the seeds separated. So that's my kind of favorite method of that. And then after that, I might grab some screens just to try to get any sticks I can out of it, especially if you can get seeds to like go vertically, because they're usually the sticks end up being similar sizes to the seeds. But if you can get like a screen where some kind of colander that the seeds don't fall through, but the sticks, you can kind of jump it up and down to get the sticks through. And then there's the question of the burrs that you have afterwards, or did they call them burrs? What do they call them? They have a special debearding. They call it beards. The beards on the carrot seeds. That's just getting rid of it with friction is kind of like the only like way to do it. So if like you can rub them together with your hands with gloves or things like that. If you're worried about the burrs, like if you're using a seeding machine, but the burrs, like with seed cleaning, it doesn't really matter if there's the extra material stuck in there, or if the burrs are attached. You might have to do a bit more thinning because the burrs might make them kind of go in clumps. But yeah, just any way to like rub them together is kind of like the trick if you're looking to get rid of those burrs. Would they break up poorly if they're walked on in a pillowcase? You'll definitely get more sticks that way. But it just depends on how bothered you are with sticks in the seed. Yeah, unfortunately, like carrot seed's a bit too light to winnow. If you try to winnow it with like with the sticks, they'll all blow. Yeah, so that's why I like the car mat, because you can kind of hold it to kind of get the most seeds while kind of avoiding getting those sticks in, which turns into a bit more of a manual process. Um, yeah, and then our seed cleaning equipment, like if I'm cleaning carrot seeds, I just end up running them through a screening device like multiple times. It's just like the repetition of like screening over and over again. But luckily those are electric, so I don't have to sit there shaking it all day.
I love the idea, like all these inventive ways to come up with like separating the seeds. Like it really, like I've been thinking a lot about ADST as a sort of area of the curriculum, and like all of these ideas. I'm like, oh yeah, these are really interesting design challenges. Like, how could you figure out how to separate the seeds? Like, what would you need to do? How would you figure those things out? So anyway, it's really great.
It makes
Really,
me think of mixed solutions. I think it's grade 6 science. How do you separate mixed solutions?
yeah.
So many connections.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like cutting off, like especially kids walking in them, that would probably get rid of the burrs pretty well. I would think, or like separate them out pretty much, because the burrs, once they're separated, they're really tiny and can get screened out really easily. And then I saw Shalom ask, why do we have to clean our seeds? Is it okay to grow it with the plant grits in the dirt? It's totally okay to grow it with the plant grits in the dirt. I do that all the time. It's I think cleaning our seeds, for the reason like farmers would clean seeds is like the Canadian agriculture, when you're doing germination tests to sell seeds, when you're counting, you have to count every single piece of material. So on a farmer perspective, if I had a whole bunch of sticks in my carrot seed, I'd be trying to test if the sticks would germinate. And then that's going to make my germination percentage look really low or be below like the Canadian standards. But for a home gardener, you don't like that doesn't matter. So if you're not selling these seeds and you're just using them for personal use, that doesn't come into play. And then cleaning, saw Grace asked, it's the idea, it's like not washing with dish soap. It's the idea of, which I like, I totally understand why people would think that, because it kind of, people often think it's like disinfecting, and you could say that is a type of seed cleaning. Like there's people who will put like fungal coatings and things on that. But seed cleaning is just the idea of separating the seed from whatever it's contained in. So like in a very basic idea, when you have your students with those beans in their pods and they're separating them apart, that's seed cleaning, because you're just separating the seed from what it's in. So tomatoes, that's getting the seeds out of the tomatoes. It's, yeah, cleaning is just separating the seed from the chaff. If we clean the seeds, does it help maximize the amount of seeds germinating? Not really. Okay, yes and no. That's an interesting question, because if you're cleaning the seeds, like let's say you're winnowing, and like the air current is going to be blowing away if there's immature seeds that are lighter, those ones are going to be getting out of your collection, and then you won't be germinating those lighter weight seeds that might not germinate. And similarly, if you're screening the seeds, most of your seeds aren't falling through, but the really small ones are, you're also probably increasing your germination percentage, because you're getting rid of the smaller seeds or the lighter seeds in a winnowing process, and getting rid of those seeds can often increase your germination percentage. Yeah, sometimes if I'm giving people seeds with like extra materials, like with a lot of debris, I just tell them the seed heavy, and then, yeah. Sorry, I think I heard somebody speak.
Yeah, it's me, Siri, and I'm so sorry. There's so many good questions in the chat today, and I'm really excited that this topic is bringing so much interest. And I'll just say we'll continue. If there's time at the end, we can take those extra questions. And then otherwise, I would encourage all of you to join us for our discussion group. We'll tell you more about that at the end of the presentation. So we are going to move along to the next giveaway question. Thank you so much, Siri. All right, so Tessa, I'll count you down again. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, we've got lots of chards. We've got a radish. Tessa,
I realize this is a tricky one.
We've got one beet here, a couple beets at the end.
Okay, do you want to? Are we ready for the reveal?
Yep. Beets. So those of you, it is a tricky one. Those pictures are like, I might have said chard too, I think, but.
Steven, can you tell beets versus chard apart at the seed stage? Because I feel like I would have a tough time.
No, not really. They look identical pretty much.
The tricky one.
Yeah, there's really tricky.
Species, and they cross-pollinate, so yeah.
Great. So the four of you who who won our challenge, our giveaway challenge today. I think Madison will be reaching out to you to get your address information so that we can send those giveaways out to you.
Wonderful. I feel like we could keep talking about seeds for a long time, and especially having Siri on the call with all of Siri's knowledge. It's great to be able to tap into that. But like Caitlin said, we'll have more space in the discussion group. But we want to use the last 10 minutes to talk about harvesting, because it is also the time of year where we're focused on that in our garden. That said, you may be looking at a school garden that looks something like the picture on the slide here. This was a school garden in Nanaimo that I visited, and when I visiting school gardens this time of year, a lot of school gardens I see look quite similar to this, and they haven't had the water or the maintenance over the summer. And so when we talk about harvesting, it can be disillusioning to be a teacher walking back to a garden like this and envisioning that you had tomatoes growing and beans growing, and you arrive back to this. So I just want to start off the conversation saying, even in this garden, there are so many harvest experiences to be had. I was walking around this garden and I found a dried up pea plant, and all of a sudden I had a handful of pea seeds in my hand. And instead of seeing a neglected garden, I saw seeds for next year. I also saw potential to grow microgreens, grow pea shoots in your classroom, or I saw the potential to have a nice handful of protein into a harvest soup that you cook with your class. So just a reminder this time of year that we're looking for harvest experiences, and whether or not you're stepping into a bountiful garden, there's many experiences to be had within that. This sentiment was echoed by Chris Brown, also known as Farmer Brown, in our June workshop, and I encourage you to go back to this June workshop. Chris talked about harvest traditions, and he talked about year-round harvest traditions, so much of what he talked about in June is also applicable to this time of year. And something that I really appreciated in his conversation about harvest was he talked about how can we shift some of our expectations around harvest and decolonize some of our thinking. Instead of going into the garden thinking, what can this plant give to me? Think about that. How can I build a relationship with this plant? And how is this plant also important to the insects and pollinators that are also in the garden? So Chris talked a lot about building relationships and building harvest experiences within the garden. Another thing that came up in this presentation was something that he noticed his students were doing, a kind of emergent harvest activity, that they were going into the garden and finding a big leafy green and pretending it was a taco, and then filling that with calendula petals for cheese or berries for the beans in the taco, and enjoying that as their harvest experience. And so Kaylin and I were inspired, and we made harvest tacos from the gardens in our yard. And it was a really fun activity, and I encourage either to do this with your class in the garden or do it in your home garden, and we would love to see your harvest tacos. So if you're part of our listserv, please take a picture of your harvest taco and send it out on the listserv to encourage the rest of us to get out there and do the same. It's really fun, and it's surprisingly tasty.
It was so tasty. I was like, I want another one.
I know something about added. I added like some fiddle and basil into the mix, and just that taste of herbs, and with the kale and a little bit of the juicy tomatoes. It was a really nice treat, and I think a great way to engage kids in harvesting it. Particularly, maybe a kid doesn't like to eat kale, but when it's wrapped up as a taco shell, it's all of a sudden something else, and quite enticing. If you are arriving to your garden and there is a harvest to be had in terms of the typical crops, we recommend you take a look at our fall harvest crop cards for the harvest information. On these crop cards, you may have used them to plant your garden, and it's great to refer to them again now at the harvest time, because there is a section specifically on harvest notes of what are some things to keep in mind when you're harvesting that crop. So they'll be linked into the chat bar. They're also on our Farm to School BC website, and we'll put them up in our program library as well, but a great resource this time of year. If you are harvesting, you are likely also thinking about how you want to cook or preserve that food. And I'd like to recommend our Hands-on Food website. This website was made in collaboration with Interior Health, Farm to School BC, the Public Health Association in BC, and School District 73. And it has a wide variety of lesson plans broken up into different sections: the grow it, cook it, preserve it, and don't waste it. And you'll find under the preserve it and cook it both some great lesson plans and also some practical teaching skills, like how to teach knife skills in your class if you are going to be doing preserving or cooking in your class. I wanted to harvest. One of my favorite cook it lessons is the food art lesson. And I think this is a great lesson to highlight because you may not have enough food in your garden to make a whole meal, but you do have enough to engage kids in a really fun food art activity. And it gets kids having a sensory experience in the garden, exploring different plants, and creating a really joyful experience through making art out of that food. That is also tasty art to eat once you're finished with it. Another suggestion for a harvest recipe is the idea of stone soup. Stone soup is based on an old folklore, and there's many picture books written about this folklore, and it's based on the premise that someone comes into a village with just a stone, and they put it in a pot, and they say it's a special magical stone, and through that they encourage all the villagers to come and bring their produce, and each one puts something in the pot, and collectively they make a lovely harvest soup. And so it's an activity that I've enjoyed doing in the fall with my class. And either we pick food from the school garden, or each student brings in produce that they've either grown in their garden at home or something they've purchased. And collectively, we put all that in a pot and make a harvest soup together. It's nice because you can cook in a crock pot. So even if your school doesn't have access to cooking facilities, it's something that you can cook throughout the day in a crock pot. And there's many extension activities that can go along with that. Food Share in Toronto has an awesome lesson plan. It's very extensive. And I recommend, there's so many lesson plans for Stone Soup online, but I recommend starting with the Food Share lesson plan because I think it's really exemplary in terms of Stone Soup lessons. Lastly, I wanted to finish the harvest section with just a reminder that simple is beautiful. I think when we think of harvest, we picture these elaborate meals that you're cooking up with your class, and often that just isn't realistic, especially with our busy September months and whatever state your garden might be. So a reminder that you can link harvest activities into pre-existing events. So perhaps you have a Meet the Teachers night. Perhaps you can then make a mint tea from the garden to serve at that Meet the Teachers night to bring the garden into something that you're already doing. Maybe you have a welcome back barbecue. How can you incorporate perhaps a garnish from the garden into that barbecue? But you don't need to create a whole new event. Just think of how can you incorporate the garden and harvest into pre-existing things you're already doing this fall. Also, just remind you to create space for emergent activities that kids might start up, like Chris Brown's harvest tacos. He noticed kids doing that in the garden. I've noticed in one of the schools I was working with, kids were taking things from the garden and setting up little market stalls around the edge of the field where they were selling the food that they've harvested from the garden to other students and making little veggie wraps out of it. So make space for those sort of harvesting activities as well. And then also reminding you that it could be really simple. This picture is a group of my students, and we're just eating salad in the garden. It was a really sunny November day, and I had a bottle of store-bought dressing, salad dressing, and all it took was picking some of the greens in the garden and sitting down and sharing a salad. And it required very little prior planning, except the fact that we were inspired by a sunny day and the greens still growing in November in the garden. So reminders that those simple activities can be really meaningful too. Just really thinking that it's about having an experience, it's about coming together, it's about a sense of celebration and gratitude and connecting into nature's cycles this time of year. With 1 minute left, Kaylin, I'm going to pass it over to you to just wrap it up.
I'm going to breeze through that. And then folks who do have questions, we'll stop recording. And then if Siri has time, Siri, if you have time, maybe we could stay on for 5 to 10 minutes after for folks who didn't get to ask their questions. Or we can kind of carry that on into the discussion group. So those of you who are joining us for the first time, we have lots of our resources and past programs available on our website. Under the School Garden Mentorship Program, we have our program library there and the links that we have shared today. So that will be on that website spot there. Next slide, Tessa. Also, here are just some prompts coming up for our discussion group, which is next Thursday, I believe, after school again, 3:30. Thinking about how you can connect to the core competencies through seed saving and harvest traditions. So core competencies are something that are always front of mind for me as a teacher. And then also thinking about, do you have any experience working with seeds or harvesting and sharing food with students? So this is a chance for us to come together as people working within schools to talk about our experiences and to glean information or understand information from each other. So I really encourage you to join us on that. So like I said, that's Thursday, September 21st from 3:30 to 4:30. And then our next SGM will be Tuesday, October 3rd. It will be our final one. Please come and join us for Winterizing Your Garden, and our discussion group, which will be our final one on Thursday, October 12th. Final one for this year, 3:30 to 4:30. Great. And I am going to stop recording. This is our contact information for Tessa and I.